Hello guys, welcome to weekly economic current affairs. We are back again with our economic session. Let's try to discuss the past week economic news, what was there in the news and what were the important things that we need to discuss, right? Okay, so we'll start the class for today. The first is a very important news editorial or article that came related to G20 meeting. As we know, now the presidency of G20 is with India for 1 year. Now we need to know how this overall process works. If I talk about the overall process of G20, it occurs under two tracks, very important. These two tracks are finance track and Sherpa track. Now basically when I talk about finance track, it is being headed by our governors, like in case of India, RBI of central bank, and we have the finance ministers. If I talk about the Sherpa track, they are basically emissaries or representatives of political leaders. Now here one thing becomes very important when our finance minister says that crypto regulation would be a key focus as G20 finance talks begin. So one of the things they would be discussing under the finance track would be regarding the regulation of cryptocurrency. I hope most of you guys know that in order to counter this cryptocurrency, India recently has started, or RBI introduced, e-rupee, that is central bank digital currency, in retail as well as in wholesale form. But the response to it has not been that much bright, and we have to see in the coming future what it holds for us. But right now the agenda for this finance track, which is to be held under India, is basically regarding this crypto regulation, managing debt vulnerabilities and reorienting global financial institutions. This would be the three major framework on which this G20 finance track would be operating upon. So we have to see in the coming future what lies ahead for us in relation to this finance track, right? So this is a very important news if I talk about G20, which is all over the news if we talk about, because it is very important now that India is having the simultaneous presidentship of G20 as well as United Nations Security Council, which is a 15-member body, जिसमें 5 member हमारे permanent है, right? Okay. The second thing that we're going to touch is related to an article that says the sustained growth in remittance. Very important. Now I think everyone knows what is a remittance, right? Remittance is when a people work outside and when they send the money back home to their, let's say, native country. That is basically the meaning of remittance. Remittance, if we talk about traditional factors, came from the low wages in we could say earnings, came from basically from Gulf Cooperation Council, along with it was from Australia, USA and UK. But there have been now changes in the trends in the remittance as well. Plus India is gonna hit the $100 billion mark in terms of remittance. That is a very big achievement if we talk about overall remittance. If we talk about overall numbers of the world in terms of remittance post COVID pandemic, there has been an increase in the growth of the remittance. Why there has been increase in the growth of remittance? One of the factors that has pushed towards is the fiscal stimulus that has been provided by the respective countries. Second, the willingness of the workers to pass the remittance back to their homes. These two factors have combined and resulted in a very good high growth of sending remittance back home. So in context of this, we need to look at what is now the structural shift that is happening in terms of remittance. Let's try to look at the slides, right? Okay. What is remittance? It denotes a sum of money sent by one party to another. These days the term describes the money sent by someone working abroad to their family back home. In the case of India, the largest source of remittance have been Indians working in Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Now, which are the countries that are part of Gulf Cooperation Council? UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, and USA and UK, from where we are getting our remittance. Remittance to India are set to touch a record $100 billion, which I just discussed. According to World Bank's latest migration and development brief titled Remittance Brave Global Headwinds, India received $89.4 billion in 2021, and this is the first time a country will reach the $100 billion mark. That is a big achievement if we talk about India in this coming year, when it will achieve a $100 billion mark in terms of remittance, right? Okay. World remittance are expected to touch $794 billion from $781 billion in 2021. Now we are talking about the growth rate in the overall trend in remittance. If we talk about global level, it represents a growth of 4.9% compared to 10% in 2021, which was the highest since 2010. If we talk about $794 billion, 626 went to low and middle income countries. Remittance represent an even larger source of external finance for this lower and middle income countries, right? So this thing is very important. The top 5 recipient countries this year are India, Mexico, China, Philippines and Egypt. Now these are the staggering numbers if we talk about remittance that has been coming in India, right? Okay. Now, why there has been this sustained growth? Why there has been this sustained growth in the remittance? Let's try to look at the various points. Gradual reopening of various sectors, opening of the economy after COVID, improved migrant workers' income and employment situations. We can know about this. Migrants' determination to help their families back home. This is very important. This was the willingness of the migrants to help their family back home during the COVID crisis. Along with it, fiscal stimulus measures that were taken by the respective countries helped in workers earning more and providing more remittance back home, right? Okay. Now, this is the thing that we need to talk about, that what is the structural shift that is happening in terms of remittance. Structural shift in India's remittance both in terms of top destination countries and the nature of jobs. मतलब क्या है, जिस कंट्री से पैसा सबसे ज्यादा आएगा और दूसरी चीज क्या है कि नेचर ऑफ जॉब्स कौन सी होंगी, दोनों में हमें चेंज देखने को मिल रहा है. Structural shift in Indian migrants' key destinations from low skilled informal employment in the GCC countries to a dominant share of high skilled jobs in high income countries. Now remittance is now being changing from these low skilled jobs in Gulf Cooperation Council, from the high wages that are being earned by the workers in USA, UK and East Asia. And these are the facts that prove this particular theory. Indian migrants may also take advantage of the depreciation of the Indian rupee vis-a-vis the US dollar. It fell by 10% between January to increase their remittance. This is also one of the factors that has been sort of that has increased the remittance post if we talk about India, whether it is coming from abroad. Now the structural shift is more remittances are coming from countries like USA, UK. Initially it was from the Gulf Cooperation Council, and the nature of jobs is also being changing if we talk about nature of the remittance and its structural shift, right? So this thing is very important. Now the next topic for today was the recent regional meeting of the Asia and the Pacific region of International Labour Organization, where they adopted Singapore Declaration. Now this Singapore Declaration is very important because it is asking and telling us about the rights of the labourers to form associations, rights of the women to increase their leadership, equal pay for equal work, and to have better institutional framework in order to regulate the labour laws. This was the directive or was the collective call from this Asia and Pacific regional meeting of the International Labour Organization. Let's try to look at the points. The 17th meeting of ILO set 10-point priorities. Singapore Declaration agreed social dialogue was essential. It urged the governments to ensure labour protection for all through promotion of freedom of association and effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining throughout the regions. It called for closing gender gaps in the world of work, promote equal pay for equal work of equal value, balance work and responsibilities, and promoting women's leadership. as you can see in this clipping as well, it calls for measures to increase women's participation and promote equal pay. So as a result, now International Labour Organization is focusing more and more to recognize the labor rights as well as generating more and more women participation in this labor thing and to make them future leaders in respect of this particular, we are talking about labor class. Okay guys, so I think that was it for today's session, where we discussed 3 topics related to remittance, then we discussed about this International Labour Organization. I hope you are able to understand this point and you are able to comprehend what is being going on, let's say among G20, remittance and this Singapore Declaration. Till then, see you next time. Thank you.